Welcome, everybody, to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America, only my second program since I come back from Poland and Israel. I am glad to be with you today. Got lots and lots to talk about it, so let's get right to it, shall we? First of all, we are 38 days away from the Stand Awards dinner, 38 days away. If you are on our email list, you are getting letters about these various honorees and their backgrounds and why they are getting the George Washington Award for taking a stand. Remember, tickets are $150. For those of you who are desiring to go, and maybe $150 is just too rich for you, we are going to have some complimentary tickets because, as always, we have many sponsors who cannot come, cannot fill their seats, but want to support our organization. And so we make some complimentary seats available. If you're a person who is interested in a complimentary ticket, you can get ahead of the game. We haven't begun to offer them as yet, but you can get ahead of the game by getting in touch with us at, let's see, what's the, at awardsdinner@standinc.net. Awardsdinner@standinc.net. Call, email that, awardsdinner@standinc.net, and say, I'm interested in a complimentary ticket, or I'm interested in 2 complimentary tickets. Now, we're going to distribute these on a first-come, first-served basis. So if you're interested, that's why I suggest you let us know now, because we're probably not going to be in a position to know just how many complimentary tickets we have for another couple of weeks, but we're going to go back and look. Now, I would say one thing that is very important. If you ask for a complimentary ticket, please come, because if you don't, we end up having to pay for dinner that nobody uses. And that's just, it's really ungrateful to our donors to do that. And so we've had better and worse years in terms of the amount of dinners that we've had to pay for that nobody ever ate. That money just went out the door for nothing when it could have come in to help the organization. So if you get a complimentary ticket, make sure you come, okay? Or if something happens, and we know this can happen for people, you can't come, get in touch with us as early as you can, and say, hey, look, I'm not going to be able to make it. So that we don't, there you go. So at any rate, so that's one thing. Stand Awards dinner. For more information, go to standamerica.us, standamerica.us. The awards dinner is right there on the homepage. You can make a donation because it's our biggest and most important fundraiser of the year. You can buy tickets if you want to come, or you can buy tickets and say, hey, I'm going to buy a ticket. I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm donating this. You can buy a table. You can buy tickets to both the dinner and the reception, or you can sponsor, and that's at the highest level. Sponsorships begin at $2,000, go all the way up to $100,000. So if you're in a position to help us, please help us. Pray for us, because we're looking for angel investors, angel donors, maybe be better to call it, but I think of them as investors in the future of the country and our organization. People who are in the position to make a donation of $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, because they really believe in what we're doing and they want to see us move forward. Let me be clear on exactly what we are doing. We are seeking to preserve the Judeo-Christian culture of our nation by attacking it through the issue of racial division. So we're bringing people together across racial and cultural lines to uphold those shared values. And frankly, I think we could do a whole lot more with that if we had the resources to do it. So some of the programs that that ends up manifesting, for example, is our school, the Maximum Potential Christian Academy, which we consider to be a model for other schools. The curriculum we're developing for the Family Restoration Institute, a course called The Power of Personal Culture, where basically what we're doing is affirming American culture, not black, Hispanic, white, blah, blah, but American culture, the shared values that we all have. We are affirming our support for our police officers. We are affirming our support for those institutions and those symbols that represent unity in our country. So we're doing those things that help bring America together. Now, there are all kinds of organizations doing all kinds of things, and all of them, most of them certainly, conservative organizations I'm talking about, are good. But nobody's doing quite what we're doing, because we are focused on healing the racial divide, not by racial reconciliation services where people wash each other's feet. Forgive me, folks. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just not me. I just can't. I can't do it. Because nobody owes me an apology for something that somebody else did in a prior generation to somebody else that I don't even know. I mean, I just can't. I can't make myself get into that. What I'm into is, let's work together today and for the future as fellow Americans. I've never been a slave. Nobody I know has ever been a slave owner. I don't even want to talk about that with people as if somehow they owe me something. I can't do it. I have no patience with it for me, and I'm not trying to knock it for other people, but it just doesn't work for me. Okay? Just doesn't work for me. People coming into a service and apologizing to me for all that my ancestors did. I mean, I don't want to hear it. Because you start down that road, folks, where does it end? Let's have services where the British, people of British ancestry can apologize to people of Irish ancestry. And let's have a service where Americans of prior generations can apologize to Japanese Americans. And then the Irish can apologize to Italians, because the Irish were here first, and they mistreated the Italians when they came. I mean, where does all this end? Let's focus on the present and the future instead of wallowing in the past. Just me. And again, not knocking people who do it, because God can take a crooked stick and hit a straight lick. And I'm not saying God can't use that to bless people or help people or heal people who really are into that. Maybe they feel better about themselves and better about the country, and that's wonderful, but it's just simply not what we do, okay? I'm interested in working together on the problems we are facing today and on what it's going to take to secure America's future. So join with us, help us, and pray for us. Because, again, prayer will produce resources. Resources can never be a substitute for prayer. So the dinner is May 16th, Friday, May 16th at the Cornerstone Chapel. That's 650 Battlefield Parkway Southeast, Leesburg, Virginia. That's up in Northern Virginia, up just outside of Washington, D.C. The pastor there, of course, is Pastor Gary Hamrick, good friend of mine, and they're kind enough to host this event for us. So I hope that you will come. And just go on our website. I think you'll find the hotels that are available for those of you who are interested in coming. If you want to stay overnight, you want to stay at a hotel up there. It's out in the obviously out in the suburbs, so you're not going to find 5-star hotels out there. We're looking at maybe 3.5, 4-star hotels, but decent hotels, Marriott's and Homewood Suites. So it's a very nice area, very safe area. But we would love to have you come. And we're not focusing so much on numbers of people as we're focusing on quality, because we found we focus on numbers and we just try to use every available ticket we've got. We end up having a lot of people say they're coming and then they don't come. And, there are lots of ways to do this. And the way I've chosen to do it is to sow a seed into people and just give people a ticket. If some people want to donate something, they're certainly welcome to do that. But I don't want to get into discount tickets and all that, and it feels like nickel and diming to me. So, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It's either you pay for a ticket or we'll give you a complimentary ticket, and then you can do whatever you want to do in terms of giving. Okay. All right. Well, praise God. I'm excited about it. Tina Deskovich, Kevin Freeman, Walter Hoy, Stacy Washington, Robert Woodson are honorees, and we are going to have a magnificent time. So I hope you'll be a part of it. Okay. Let me first address the issue of Israel, since I just came back from Israel. When I got back, I was informed. In fact, my son was the one who told me this, and because I didn't know it, that Candace Owens had made this comment that based on some circuitous logic of hers, that it feels like Netanyahu is running the White House and Trump is doing whatever Netanyahu wants him to do. Now, folks, that is an old canard. The Jews are running the world. And, whatever problems we have, it's the Jews' fault because they've done it, right? Because they're in charge of everything, right? What is it? The protocols of the elders of whatever that thing is. I forget what it is. But, it's all a bunch of garbage. It's all a bunch of demonic garbage. So let me say this about Candace Owens. And I know Candace. I don't know her well. I don't want to pretend that we're close friends or we've been close friends. We haven't been. But I've met Candace. I preached at Blexit events. I've been with Candace at events. We sat at the same table and talked. I met her husband. Candace and her going off the rails now is really our fault and the fault of the conservative movement. Now, let me tell you what I mean. And this is important, folks. This is really important. I want to say two things about this. And I don't mean this to be a personal attack on Candace because that's not what I'm doing. I said it's our fault, meaning it's the conservative movement's fault. Conservatives have often been so anxious to have black spokespersons who espouse conservative viewpoints that instead of allowing that to happen organically, we find someone who we think meets the bill, and we promote and elevate that person without understanding who that person really is. Yeah, and I say we because I'm perhaps somewhat guilty of this, although I have to tell you, I'm always somewhat restrained too. And people ask me about, why don't you have Candace Owens come and do this with you and do that with you? I said, well, I have to be cautious about how I work with Candace Owens because Candace Owens promotes same-sex marriage and she promotes homosexuality. She thinks it's okay. I don't know whether she's changed now that she's converted to Catholicism, but I said, I'm a Christian and I don't think it's okay. And I guess maybe at that point she didn't consider herself a Christian. I'm not sure where she is now spiritually. But I said, I can't have Candace Owens on my radio program. I said, because Candace Owens' values don't all line up with mine. And that's a fundamental distinction between us. I believe that same-sex marriage is an abomination to God. I believe that it is deeply and profoundly wrong, and that it is in part, more than anything else, is what brought us to this point where we've got this whole so-called transgender thing, because you can't transition from one gender to another, but that's what they like to call it. This whole transgender thing where gender is fluid and you don't know, you might be born in the wrong body. That happened because people embraced homosexuality as normal and good and right, and it is abnormal, it is bad, and it is wrong. Now we have a fundamental difference there. And so I was always somewhat restrained. Kanye West, and apparently Candace now and Kanye West are commiserating and talking because they both have this obsession with Jewish hatred, with hatred of Jews. Again, I don't know what Candace may consider herself, but remember Kanye West went through this thing where he's doing worship services and he's appearing and he's down. See, he's down at Joel Osteen's church doing worship services because he's the hot new thing. How's that working out right now? When I say we conservatives, look, and I have a little beef with the conservative movement in this sense. We made the same mistake that leftists make. Because what leftists have tried to do is they know where they want the black community to go. And what they do is try to handpick people that they can elevate, like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, those are the two names that come quickly to mind. But, people that they feel they can elevate so that they can espouse their communist, socialist, Marxist, leftist views and sell that to the black community. I mean, Margaret Sanger did the same thing. She went out and recruited preachers to go sell killing black babies. I'll pay you all if you all will help me kill black babies. And she had a bunch of them say, I'm in. Where's the money? Because, listen, no organization, certainly no organization, but I would hope organizations have a culture, conservative, particularly Christian organizations have a culture of integrity. What I really meant to say was no demographic, no culture, no race has a monopoly on righteousness or can be said to have a monopoly on wickedness. Okay? And this idea that somehow all black people are virtuous victims and all white people are villainous oppressors, forgive the redundancy, is ridiculous. Human beings as individuals vary. Some are good, some are bad, some are evil, some are decent, some have integrity, some are just as dishonest as they can be. I mean, and a lot of them are a mixture of all of that. You know, one would like to think that Christians, disciples of Jesus Christ, are people of honor and decency and compassion and integrity and so forth. But then again, who's a disciple of Jesus Christ? Is Candace Owens really a disciple of Jesus Christ? I don't think so. Because as I've raised this question, how can you disparage, hate, vilify the Jewish people and then claim to be following a Jewish Messiah who could never have come had it not been for the Jewish people through whom God worked to bring us our Messiah? Now, how does that, that doesn't even make sense. Jesus walked this earth as a Jewish man, preached in the temple, preached in the synagogues, celebrated Passover like any other Jewish man in Israel at that time. And when he met the woman at the well, and she said, well, your people say we're supposed to worship in Jerusalem, but my people say we're supposed to worship in this mountain. I guess that was Mount Gerizim, you know, which the northern kingdom of Israel had established as an alternative to Jerusalem because they went pagan. And Jesus said, woman, you don't know what you worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Did Jesus say that? Salvation is of or from the Jews. God used the Jewish people to bring salvation to the world. Now, you can like that, lump that, do what you want to do with it, but that's the truth. And Jesus said it, unless you're going to call him a liar. So I don't know how you can call yourself a Christian and engage in this anti-Semitism that seems to be so prevalent. Now we got Candace Owens doing it. So look, you know, I woke up this morning, because obviously I've been thinking about Israel a lot since I came back. I woke up this morning thinking this, you know, one of the greatest vilifications that the left tries to throw at people who support Israel and to throw at Israel in general and at Jews in general is to be a Zionist. Meaning that Jews have a right to that homeland, that it was given to them by Almighty God, that any Jew anywhere in the world who wants to go to Israel, who wants to make Aliyah, wants to live in Israel, has a perfect right to do so, and that the Jewish people have a perfect right to control that land because it is divinely bequeathed to them. You know what? I'm a Zionist. I am a Zionist. I believe that all of human history is going to come to focus on that land. Because God chose that as the land where his name would be where his name would be placed, that he would put his name on it. And the Bible makes clear that in the end times, in the last days, that's where the final confrontation is going to take place. That's where Armageddon is going to take place. That's where Jesus is going to confront the forces of evil. So I'm just being biblical. People can like it or not, but it's the truth. So I am a Zionist. I stand with Israel. And frankly, I don't care who likes it or who doesn't. And that includes Candace Owens. No disrespect meant, but I'm just saying. So conservatives instead of looking to people, yes, like me, forgive me, no self-promotion intended, like Robert Woodson, like Walter Hoy, like Johnny Hunter, like Star Parker, like Alan West. In other words, people who have been on the front lines for years. People who have labored. I said, my organization ran 900 ads in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia to the black community, urging them to vote for Donald Trump. 900 ads we ran in those communities. Instead of some of these conservatives who are looking to ally themselves with some black conservative because they believe in what they stand for, instead of trying to pluck up some young novice that they don't know who this person ultimately will turn out to be because the person's too young to know that because they don't have enough experience and wisdom to know that, and pluck them up. Kanye West, let's lift him up. Candace Owens, let's lift her up. Now they got another guy. He's a homosexual and he's black and he's, I guess, espousing a conservative viewpoint and they're trying to promote him. I mean, it's dumb. It really is. It's just quite dumb. And it repeats the same stupid mistake that leftists make. Now, I don't know what exactly the motivation for conservatives is. I haven't really thought through that, whether it's just, preoccupation with the new young thing, the new bauble, or I'm just not sure what that is. That you step over people, as I've just mentioned, I can name a bunch of others as well, who have been on the front lines for a long time. But you step over those people and you go to some new young person who then, and the whole thing ends up exploding in your face, as is happening now with Candace Owens, as it happened with Kanye West. And I can think of some other instances where maybe not nationwide, where I've seen people do a similar thing and have it end up exploding in their face. So this is my 2 cents for people like Robert Woodson and people like Walter Hoy and people like Johnny Hunter and people like Star Parker, who's now retired from our organization. And yes, people like moi, who have, been on the front lines of the conservative movement. Folks, I've been on the front lines of the conservative movement for 45 years, at least. Because remember, I was involved in the battle over the so-called gay rights bill in Massachusetts. That was in the early 1980s. When people like Candace Owens and Kanye West weren't even born. Well, maybe they were born. Well, Candace Owens definitely wasn't born. Maybe Kanye West was. I don't know how old he is, but I don't think he was born. Fighting the good fight, being vilified. I was just talking to my wife about a woman up in Massachusetts, and if any Massachusetts people are listening, her name was Marjorie Clapprood, and she was, I don't think she ever did she become lieutenant governor, but she served in the legislature. I went up to the legislature to, again, lobby about this whole, the sexual deviancy bill. I'll call it that. They call it the so-called gay rights bill. I'll call it the sexual deviancy bill. And she caught me in the hallway, I will never forget it, and just cursed me out, up and down. Yeah, so much for liberals, favoring black people and minorities. I mean, please, what a joke. And I put up with that. Of course, I was a Christian. I certainly didn't curse her out myself and wouldn't, do anything aggressive. I just had to basically stand there and take it. Because I knew that I was there for God and there for what was right for people. And I wasn't going to be cowed by this woman, this diva. And she was a diva, Marjorie Clapprood. She was a diva. Of course, she's a lot older now. I assume she's still alive. It's been, again, I ended up having further interactions with her, by the way, because I ended up being a talk show host on a local radio station, and we were working for the same station, so our paths began to cross, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. So, I mean, there are lots of us, and I'm not, forgive me, I know my own life better than I know anybody else's, but there are lots of us who've been on this for a long time. But, you know, there's this tendency to want to grab this new young thing. So now you got this new guy, he's a homosexual, but somehow he's supposed to be speaking for the conservative movement. I guess he's supposed to be reaching young people. I don't know. You know what I think young people want? I think young people want sincerity and authenticity. I think that's what they want. I went to, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my watch again. I got a clock right in front of me. I went to Hampton University one time to speak, and ended up in a large class of black students, and I was talking to them about pro-life. And most of them just viscerally, because they're creatures of the left and the Democrat Party, probably just are pro-baby killing. Because, I mean, that's what they've been told. They don't really have it. They haven't thought through it. They don't understand the spiritual and moral implications of that kind of genocidal activity, particularly in the black community, but across the nation. They don't understand it. But I began to lay out the case. When I was done, most of the students in that room were agreeing with me. There was only two kids. One of them was clearly the leader in this little duo. And she was, I guess, going to nursing school, and she wanted to argue me down that this was violating women's rights, blah, 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 blah. But most of them got it, particularly when I explained to them what this was doing to the black community. They understand it perfectly. They understood it perfectly. I don't think what they need is a homosexual who happens to be black, or some, young girl who looks good, or whatever the criteria are, in order to be reached. I think what they really want is authenticity. What they really want is truth. What they really want is sincerity. What they really want is somebody who can explain things to them in a way that they understand. Have you seen any of these interviews of these kids at these older adults even, but certainly the kids at these rallies, these anti-Semitic confabs, and they start asking them questions? They don't have a clue what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. They've been told Trump's a fascist. Okay, what is he doing? Well, now I didn't come here with a booklet. It's like, I'll tell you, they start crawfishing quick. Now, you're here confronting me about things. I didn't come here with a booklet. I mean, in other words, airheads, manipulated with emotion and rhetoric and screaming and the sense of belonging. You sit down and reason with most of these kids, I guarantee you have a chance to just get all the rabble-rousers out. So you sit and you just talk to them, and I guarantee that most of them will realize what we're offering makes sense and what the other side is offering doesn't. That's how I ended up with spiritual as well. But logically, I listened to what the Democrat Party was saying, because I was a Democrat, just like most black folks. I listened to what the Democrat Party was saying, and I ultimately came to the conclusion, in addition, they were wrong spiritually. I came to the conclusion that the things they were advocating didn't make sense. It's like in Vermont right now, they've put this this girls' team for a Mid-Vermont Christian school. They banned them from all sports in the state, all organized sports in the state under the public school system. They banned them because they refused to play with a man. And he is a man. You don't become a woman by simply saying you're a woman. But these girls are being punished for that reason. That doesn't make any sense. But it makes sense apparently to Democrats. So, just on leaving aside for the moment the spiritual and moral degeneracy of the Democrat Party, there is no logic there. Okay, let me move on. You got the point. And again, believe me, folks, I do not mean to be engaging in a personal denunciation of Candace Owens. or anybody else for that matter, Kanye West. But I'm simply pointing out the mistake that we as conservatives can make of elevating people quickly, only to learn later that that person could be a mile wide and a 16th of an inch deep when it comes to true convictions and understanding of why we are conservatives and what it means to be conservative. Okay, let me go to the tariffs issue. I still got some time to deal with that. The stock market is rallying today, by the way, because yesterday the news was, the stock market is tanking. And, I listen to these Democrats making commentary like it's the end of the world. Oh, Trump is finally gone too far. And now it's clear he's wrecking the economy. These people, well, these people are so disconnected from reality. You got gas prices going down. You got food prices going down. You got interest rates going down. In other words, you got the economy improving for the average American. And because the stock market shows some volatility, they come out with their hair on fire and tell you, it's the end of the world. It's the end of the country. Donald Trump is destroying America. So what do they have to say now? The stock market was up 1,000 points this morning. The various exchanges, I'd say on average, up about 1,000 points. So what are they saying now? Because again, they're not rational people. They're a cult. I tell you what they'll probably say now. Nothing. Probably say nothing. But let me raise this issue on two issues on these tariffs. And I'll say this about the volatility of the stock market. Watch it. Watch the stock market, because look, I'm convinced of this. People who are that obsessively hateful of Donald Trump, who that to that depth, to a profound depth, hate him and want to see him destroyed, if not literally killed. Do you think those people would be willing to manipulate the financial markets in order to try to hurt him? Now, I haven't heard anybody suggest this, but let's not forget George Soros made his money manipulating markets, now primarily currency rather than the stock market, but he made his money manipulating currency. And if I'm not mistaken, when he almost brought down the whole British economy, he was playing the currency market. I wouldn't put it past any of these people to manipulate the stock market in order to try to destroy Donald Trump, even if it meant the destruction of a whole bunch of innocent people who are just trying to earn some money to take care of themselves and their family. I'm not sure why this has not been raised, but I hope that the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, is keeping a very close watch on what is happening in the stock market right now, any alterations in algorithms, any major trading entities that do large stock destabilizing trades. They say, well, they wouldn't do that because they'd be hurting themselves. No, they're not. No, they wouldn't be doing it to hurt themselves. They'd be looking for their own payoff at the end, but they'd be looking for a way to hurt Donald Trump in the meantime. I mean, I think you're right. I think people who would do this, they certainly would not be committing financial suicide, but they might think they can commit political homicide against Donald Trump. So let's be on the lookout for that. I don't say that because I think I'm brilliant and I see something nobody else sees. I say it because I'm suspicious. And I do certainly see what very few are willing to admit, that there is such an irrational hatred of Donald Trump that I don't think there's anything. Look, when Tim Walz, and he's got his state has $1.6 billion of Tesla stock, and he's rooting for the stock to fall, which means he's rooting for every person with retirement funds in Minnesota to be hurt. Now, does that make sense to you? And he's never said, well, I made a mistake, or, I shouldn't have said. He's never relented. Who votes for people like that? But at any rate, so that's one thing. I don't. So basically, I'm not moved by what's happening in the stock market because I know the ability to manipulate it for political purposes as well as financial purposes. And again, today it's up. So what do you say now? But here's the other thing. The people who have their head on fire over these tariffs, by the way, Israel has said they want to reach parity with the United States of America so that there's no trade deficit between Israel and the United States of America. That's the way a trading partner should be behaving, Candace. So that doesn't sound to me like Netanyahu is running the White House. Sorry. Because he's not. It's ridiculous. China has said they will fight us to the end. Now listen to those words closely. They will fight us to the end. Now, folks, I don't think, again, that I'm brilliant and see stuff that nobody else sees. Maybe I'm a little bit more suspicious than some, but I see a threat in that statement. A threat that says, if necessary, we will enter into a kinetic war to defeat you, but we will never stop fighting. If Donald Trump said something like that about an adversary, you'd have the left probably going crazy. He's threatening war. What's wrong with him? But instead, in effect, they're siding with China because China is the biggest fly in the ointment in these tariff negotiations. They said 70 nations have come forward to say, okay, let's work this out. And Donald Trump has said, hey, I'm open to working it out. I'm open to reaching accommodation. What he doesn't want is these big trade deficits with other countries any longer that ends up impoverishing the American people and destroying our manufacturing base and offshoring some of the essential things that we need in order to be secure and sovereign as a nation. But China is dug in their heels. They will fight us to the end. The people who are opposing Donald Trump and what he's doing, knowing what China's position is on it, are bordering on being traitors. Now look, we're a free country. People can say whatever they want to say. They can disagree in whatever way they want to disagree. That doesn't mean they're not traitors in doing so. But at the very least, you would think they would say, well, China, we have helped China, our chief adversary, become very, very wealthy by purchasing Chinese goods and having pretty much all the goods we buy in America, a very significant amount of them made in China. I guarantee you, folks, I can pick up almost any piece of equipment, any material good I have, and sometimes I buy things, I don't even think about it, and then I get it home and look at the label, made in China. You have that experience too? When you didn't even know you were buying something that was made in China. And believe me, it's something I've got to work on because I got to figure out a way not to do that. In fact, I think what we all as Americans need to do right now is to say we are going to go out of our way to avoid buying goods from China. And I guess there's a way to do that through some of these organizations that gather together all the goods that are available that are American made. And frankly, just folks' time and attention and bandwidth, I have not yet taken that step. I've got a number of things that I've got to do personally in order to be consistent. And I do intend to do them, and I haven't gotten around to it yet because so many other things piled in on me. But that's what we've got to do. So I'm going to I don't know whether I'm going to get this done before the dinner because I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to do now that I'm back after a 10 days away. but I do intend to do it. I think we as Americans have got to do it, because if China says they're going to fight us to the end, well, you know what? Then we're going to fight them to the end. And that means whatever they mean. If there's a little hint there that they're willing to lob bombs at us, I think that we as Americans ought to just dig in and say, you know what? If that's what it comes to, so be it. But you're never going to subjugate us. You are never going to turn us into slaves to your communist system. So just forget it, Jack, because it's not going to happen. And yes, we will fight you to the bitter end, and we'll win. And we'll win. You'll end up with something you wish you never started. So I don't want us to get to that. Let's bring them under control right now. The American people rally behind Trump instead of these traitorous Democrats who basically are really in effect are supporting Xi Jinping. I mean, really in effect. And that doesn't surprise us because, look, when we started criticizing China over COVID, they said, that's racist, that's racist. So basically, they're a bunch of traitors. I said, the Democrat Party is a party, it is a demonic cult. They're not patriotic, they're not godly, they're not truthful, they're not logical. I don't see any redeeming qualities to it. I really don't. And here's just another example. Now, so I wanted to get those two things out there on the tariffs. The manipulation of the stock market is something we need to be aware of because people hate Trump enough that they're willing to do that if they think they can get away with it. It's the SEC to be vigilant. And the fact that China is the chief fly in the ointment on these tariff negotiations, and they're the ones that are digging their heels in the most. And we as Americans ought to stand behind the president in letting China know that, oh, no, you will not. Oh, no, you will not continue to monopolize our medicines, even make some of our weaponry. I mean, are you kidding me? To rely on China to make our pharmaceuticals? And nor will we allow you to poison the world again with your little laboratory experiments and tests of biological warfare, because that's what I believe this ended up being. Even if that's not the way it started out, I really believe that's what it ended up being. And at some point, it became an intentional exercise in what they could do to harm America, particularly the world in general, but particularly America through biological and chemical warfare. Yeah, and I don't think necessarily those scientists who were working necessarily that that's what they were up to. But I think once they had the opportunity, I think that's exactly what Xi Jinping and his little communist cohorts decided that, well, you know what, this is a great opportunity. Let's see what we can do to hurt them with biological warfare. And you had people like Anthony Fauci, a little sycophant egomaniac, happily doing their bidding. And a bunch of Democrats defending them. Oh, it didn't come from a laboratory. That's tin hat stuff. I mean, yeah, because they're just as evil and wicked as that communist regime, which is why they're in agreement with them. Okay, a couple of other things. The Supreme Court has given the president the ability to continue deporting under the Alien Enemies Act. Praise God for that, because he has declared MS-13, Tren de Aragua, these vicious, violent gangs that have infiltrated our country through illegal immigration have been declared terrorists and can now be deported summarily, and they should be. Let me add one other thing, because I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about that, except I'm glad the Supreme Court is reining in these rogue judges who think that they can control the policies of the entire country militarily and foreign policy and immigration by simple judicial fiat. in their robes and declare, and this is what the president's got to do. It doesn't work that way. That's not consistent with separation of powers, and it's not certainly not consistent with the executive authority of the president of the United States. He cannot be controlled by judges. I think that we've got 170 injunctions against the president. 170. No president has come anywhere near. I think he's had more injunctions against him than all the presidents in our history combined. Certainly all the most recent ones. I mean, it's ridiculous. So that's moving in the right direction. I hope the Supreme Court and Amy Coney Barrett sided with the liberals. See, folks, I don't trust but two Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. That's it. The rest of them, I don't know. Gorsuch has been off the reservation. Amy Coney Barrett's gone off the reservation. Kavanaugh, I think less so, maybe. Less so. I hope he becomes, excuse me, folks. I hope he becomes a reliable conservative justice. But right now, it's Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. That's it. Last two things quickly, and then I got to go because I'm over time. This Biden mental decline cover-up, folks, is really ought to be the final nail in the coffin of proving a principle that I've enunciated many, many times, which is this. Democrats don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about the country. I mean, they care about somebody like me only in terms of wanting to silence me or hurt me. But they don't care about the country. They don't care about the American people. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the economy. They care about power. Because they were propping up Joe Biden, who had his finger on the nuclear button. And you and I, as experienced human beings, if you're of any age, and you had any relatives, anybody you know who's going through dementia, you know that dementia is extremely destabilizing to the personality and the decision-making of an individual. Love of country should have made them say, you know what, we've got to admit that President Biden is not up to the task, and we've got to figure out a way to do what our country needs to have done and transition him out. And just admit that to the American people. Painful though it would have been to him, say, look, I love my country. Painful though it may be the Democrat Party, I love my country, and I know this is just wrong. But no, they didn't. What they did, they propped him up. Apparently the man was having all kinds of episodes where he was freezing and didn't move, where they had to put down phosphorescent tape to show him where to walk. I mean, they don't care about the country. That's not, they just don't. They care about their power and their agenda. That's it. That's all they care about. And they wouldn't care if Biden couldn't speak two words, keep him locked in a basement and just make decisions for him, as long as they're the ones making the decisions. And then finally, folks, these Elon Musk attacks, I mean, again, what does it prove? That they don't care about people. Elon Musk employs 100,000 Americans. That's 100,000 families, 100,000 people, probably most of them with children. And they want to bring him down? What does that mean to all those families? What does that mean to Tim Walz's own retirement fund in his own state? Because that's not what they think about. They don't think about what happens to human beings. They think about what happens to them. I remember Dr. King said famously, the question is, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, he said, I think this was when he went to appear at the Memphis garbage strike. And he said, the question is not what happens to me if I go, but what happens to them if I don't. He was saying, it is not me that is most important. It is the service I'm providing. You can agree or disagree with him about the particular issue or policy, but it was clear that it was the people that he was concerned about, not himself. That's not the case with the Democrat Party. They're not concerned about people at all. If you don't believe it, just cross them and see what happens to you. Okay, I'm going to quit there. Listen, God bless each and every one of you. Don't forget, May 16th, our Stand Awards dinner. Go to standamerica.us for the details on that. And I hope you'll come or support us in some way. In the meantime, you know what to do. Stand up, step up, speak up, and refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.